Hello, friend. We are now in the very final channel of the logical stream, logical system, the logical side of the body graph, the understanding piece. Now, if you come through this chronologically, this will be the last one. If you haven't and you've gone wherever you need to, that's okay too. But for the purposes of this recording and for the purposes of a sequential order, the 1762 will be the last channel that we do on the collective logical side. So the channel of acceptance. So the channel of acceptance, a design of an organizational being. Recognition, projection, collective understanding, the future, visual. Acceptance is mentally organizing information based on already substantiated opinion with detail. Logic isn't correct or right. Logically expressing a practical organization scheme requires acceptance. You either buy in or you don't. So when people buy in, they then provide resources so that the theory can be tested. And if ultimately it is to be acted upon, is it going to be acted upon? Is this testing and pattern going to be tried out? Is there going to be buy-in for it or not? So difficult to change these people's opinions, yet when we communicate to these people with how things are organized, and this is how you can get them to see a new pattern. Any person that has any of the channels between the head and the Ajna and the throat, there's a very fixed way to conceptualize. And because of that, it is so difficult to change their mind. But here on the logical side of the body graph, really inform them about, how to see the new pattern by providing them with details and how things are organized so that they can then recognize the new pattern. Logical people will share their opinions and facts on how to be organized. In order to prove this is a good way to be organized, there will need to be energy applied to see if the opinion and details will stand the test of time. This channel is opening up a pathway for inspiration to get to those that require it. Acceptance opens up the possibility for formulas to be given their detail and structured as a pattern. This channel of acceptance opens up possibilities for formulas. A pressure to speak, just wait for the invitation. This is how the most effective communication can come into the world, is through invitation. So logic is about perfection and improving in a logical way in order to get to the point of perfection. Perfection equals something is perfect as long as there is no mutation. And that's where we're moving to next, is the individual circuitry. And there is so much information in there that, mutation. That's what individuals are all about. So as long as there's no mutation, then the pattern can hold. The perfection can hold. But as soon as individuals come in, that usually throws everything for first tailspin. This is the channel of organizing humanity at the intellectual level, creating language, formulas for the purpose of testing the future of human. Formulas are created. And then they can be languaged. And through that language, then we can all have the transference as to what that formula actually is. So if we can't understand a logical pattern, we can't project it into the future comfortably. So the logical process is about establishing a good or a ground, a framework upon which we can build our future as the abstract looked into the past to, to tell us what the experience has been. So abstract's always looking in the past. Logic is looking in the future based off of its now. And then it can establish a framework. So it's kind of taking past experience, what's happening in the moment, and then it can create this framework and ground us into establishing a new pattern. So again, when we look at this, we see that the 17 in the Ajna Center, this is all about consciousness, and transcendence happens in the collective circuitry, both sides. That's how we transcend. We're not doing this alone. We're doing this together. Individuality brings the mutative energy, and the collective allows us to transcend. And then, of course, the 62 is in the quarter of bonding, because this is where we create form. So let's break this down into the two gates. So the gate of opinions, this is about following, and you'll get this in a minute. This is projected. It's the collective understanding. It is the right eye and seeing in the now. The visualization of the pattern is then translated into language in the 60-second gate. Opinions must have a foundation to withstand testing and criticism. Only time will tell if the opinion was correct. So the 17th gate is opposite the 18th gate in the wheel, which is important to know what the opposite is always. I don't really touch on it much here, but when you're walking through, look and see what the opposite gate is, because it gives you an insight as to what's happening. What we will do is when we drop into incarnation crosses, you'll be able to see that a little better. So Ra always said this information is for the kids and the future generations. We are in the time of planting the seed as the new 400-year cycle comes into play in 2027. It is about getting people to recognize that the connection with their source, the knowledge of the matrix, is available to everyone. So the blueprint of your design indicates where your place within the flow is. So we can be organized in a way that can't possibly imagine now, because it will be a natural process. So we cannot imagine this. When I can take a bird's eye view of human design, and you guys are going to understand this, how does the Wa work? How does the Penta work? When we can pull ourselves out and see how humanity is organized, we just can't imagine the depth and breadth of this information. But it's a natural process. It just happens. And when we walk through all of that energy, you guys will be able to see this. Even walking through the channels and the gates, this stuff just naturally expresses itself in your own body graph or in those people that you know. Just naturally does it as long as we get out of the way. So once the mind is no longer cluttered with garbage decisions, the connection to the flow can occur. Rather than education beginning with belief, education can begin with true knowledge. This is the logical understanding of the nature of what it is to be human. One's place in the world and where one belongs. And why do we talk about flow? Why do we talk about place? Well, that's what the 515 is all about. And every living organism has that. So this is the teaching of the future, which has to be deeply rooted in understanding that what is of value to human rights, again, the 18th gate is deeply rooted in human rights. So what's of value to the human rights of the people on this planet? That's really what the the 17 is doing. It is leading us into the future based off of the human rights. Now, why does this gate talk about following? So, sorry, it'll be on the next slide, my apologies. So, emancipation is so important. So, it is to recognize that every single individual has to be emancipated. And the only way we can do that is when the individual recognizes its own nature and has its place in the world. Organization cannot take place until understanding takes place, and the understanding leads to the 60-second gate, which is the gate of the Maya, which we will be moving into shortly. This naming goes back to naming the genome, the project that is deconstructing the human DNA. And it is a matter of fact that a vast majority of the collective understanding in this time in the global orchestrated development, or directory, is detrimental to fundamental human rights. It's so very is so very blatant on our planet that the collective understanding circuitry that really is designed to, have these leaders, good or bad, move us into the future. But they always forget about the fundamental human rights in all of this. I know patterns need to be tested, things need to be tested, but it is disgusting, really disgusting, to see how the energy from the last 400 years has just been so brutally against human rights. And to me, it's really surprising. And you guys have this video in the introductory of this course, because the global energy has the 16 and the 9 within it. And the 16 and the 9 are a part of this logic. So as some of the, keywords or keynoting that you want to add into all of this is identification and human rights and concentration and focus, and it makes me sad that the human rights of people have been totally disregarded. However, it has also catapulted us now into this next phase in our lives in 2027 to be emancipated, to be free of the restraint and the control or the power of another, especially to free from bondage, emancipated, the slaves. We need to be aware enough. And even, saying the word awakening, I don't know. I have lots of very spiritual people that are in my sphere, and I am so surprised at how many of them cannot see the whole scope and breadth of what's happening in this year 2020. And it just surprises me. They are still in this bondage of the cross of planning, I guess. And it is what it is, I guess, because I can see this in a very mechanical way. It's maybe a little different for me. But we need to emancipate ourselves, and we need to just let go of and let the cross of planning destroy itself. So the gate of opinions, this following. So the ancient law that those who wish to rule must know how to serve. I'm going to read you some information here from Ra, because I think that, it was very profound for me. So the devil says, better to reign in hell than to serve in heaven. This is quoted by John Milton from The Paradise Lost. So this particular hexagram here that we're talking about, the 17, this is the nature of the 17th gate, this the ancient law that those who wish to rule must first know how to serve. That understanding must be of service. Only then will it lead to rule. Will it lead to the power that understanding can bring? So remember that the logical process is always trying to establish for us a pattern that we can trust and move with into the future. It is a very important pattern for us and for all human beings who are deeply concerned. We see that in the integration process at the most primal level, and we're going to look at the integration when we get to individuality. There is this fear of what tomorrow will bring. Being of service is the need to be able to logically understand that the pattern is secure and that tomorrow will be secure. If understanding is not of service to humanity in that way, then the understanding can be detrimental. In other words, we have been promised many times by our logical leadership that the pattern will secure us into the future, only to discover that it did exactly the opposite. So it is something to be aware of. It can also be the devil's law, not just simply God's law. For me, that's very, very powerful because of our time that we're in 2020, and watching how there's this real galactic battle over Earth and humans at this moment. And, the cross of planning is coming to a close and it is freaking out. It no longer wants to serve. It totally wants to, completely destroy human rights in order to continue to hold on to its control. And that serves no purpose here in the 17th gate. So the right angle cross of service provides service for the betterment of society. The juxtaposition of opinions, this apply yourself to see how thoughts shape the world around you. And then the left angle cross of upheaval, challenge situations where fundamental human values are lacking. So let's start at the very bottom, this openness. So there's this openness. Okay. So opinions and service and following, it's all about having this grounding in openness. So the energy to sustain a broad spectrum of stimuli. The possibility of having opinions. Stimulation is in the 56th gate. Now all of a sudden we have another stimuli over here. And remember how I said it's very difficult to change the minds of those that have the full channel. However, the one gate. This openness allows for a broad spectrum of opinions to then come in. So this is the potential here to help other people see the patterns. So a tendency to limit openness to aesthetically pleasing stimuli. The possibility to limit opinions to what is pleasing. Discrimination in the second, the benefit of associations based on the highest values. So the possibility to develop opinions through relationships. Well, we need. We need to have the other. We just do. It is just what it is. So the successful alignment of purpose through the successful achievement of purpose through proper alignment. Discerning, discrimination. Those are two words that allow us to, drop into what does our strategy and authority do for us. It's discrimination and discernment as to what is correct for us. So an overactive discrimination that leaves one virtually alone. The possibility of being opinionated at the expense of relationships. We need the other, you guys. We need to have the other so that we can measure and see where we're at. So the third is the understanding, the awareness that the best road is not necessarily the most interesting. The following of the best road provides the experience necessary to meet the challenge of the road's end. We're all coming to an end. So the understanding that the best opinions are grounded in detail. The taking of shortcuts. One may get to the end quicker, but essentially experience will be missing. The possibility of skipping details and limiting the value of the opinion. So logic really wants to have there needs to be the formula. Follow the formula. Here's the formula. So I do have a few gates and traits in the logic. I have the 9 and the 18. And what's so interesting to me is that as a manifesting generator, that's one of the things that is a possibility, is that we skip steps. Generators are very good at going step by step, as long as their mind isn't taking control. And what's funny is that the possibility of skipping details and limiting the value of the opinion and taking these shortcuts, it's difficult to, repair what has been missed. So I and my husband and I just built a couple greenhouses. And for the first one, he was busy. So I didn't complete step 1, and that is square up the building. I thought, oh, well, it should do it on its own. Nope, didn't. So everything is totally built, and now I have a building that's not square. And, now my husband is trying to repair that for me. So that's skipping steps and taking a shortcut isn't always the best way to do things. The 4, the personnel manager, the ability to probe and discover the underlying motivation and resources of those who wish to follow. The possibility of opinions based on the understanding of others. You first need to, serve, right? You need to follow to then become the leader to serve. And what's important here is, what is the underlying motivation and the resources of those who wish to follow? Again, we just looked at this. It can also be the devil's law, not just simply God's law. What are the underlying motivations and resources when we are trying to test something scientifically on this planet? That needs to be uncovered. And I say this often, follow the money, follow the money, follow the money. And then this discrimination piece, Let's do the highest values, because the 17 really is about human rights. So no human is an island in the 5th line. The recognition, however understood, that there is not an end to hierarchies. The ultimate creative expression of interdependency, whether as God's will or global synthesis. Opinions that can express the value of being organized. We are not an island. No human is an island. We are designed to interact with each other and be organized. And not organized in a fashion that takes away autonomy. Organized in a fashion where the frequency of each person interacts at the highest expression. And then through that, the commerce on this planet can look different. The relationships on this planet can look different. Everything can look different. And the arrogance, despite all the evidence to claim that the buck stops here, the possibility of opinions that refuse to see the value of being organized. And then the bodhisattva, the perfected following, one with and as the same as perfected leading. The great nurturer. The nature of this position is always positive. The possibility in understanding the nature of interdependency to express opinions of value to others. And the tendency on the perfected path, it is a straight line that ends rather than a circle, where understanding is achieved. The possibility of having the opinion that there is nothing else to learn. So we're standing out there, and it's like we're able to follow and to lead all at the same time, and we have that capability built into each and every one of us. No matter how you look at it, all of this is built into us. And now we go to the 60-second gate, this gate of detail, the preponderance of the small. This is in the throat center, so this is the voice of I think. So communicating detail from opinions for the pattern. This is the great gate of naming things. Putting words to the opinions to manifest expression. Nothing exists without being named. The only way to understand is to name it. The theory of the pattern is expressed in all its detail. Once expressed, it has to be experimented with, because we cannot accept a pattern that is just verbalized. Logic demands experimentation. When the abstract side is creating a story, the logical side is creating the language. In order to organize, we need to come to this common access of meanings. The names are another word for formula. The basic formula for each word is taught, then collectively agreed upon. For example, the word free. We have created a formula what free is. We walk into a store and they give us a free sample. We're walking out in nature and we have this sense of being free. We are free from bondage. We have created a formula on what that looks like. Then we gave it a verbalization. And then the collective has this consent that free is what free means is what free means. There's a formula there. Everything about the 60-second gate is about the capacity to find the detail in what you are expressing so that others can truly understand. This is a factual voice. It is either reasonable or absolutely unreasonable. The gate is measuring and then giving the names to the formulas. You are trying to organize your mental images, then trying to get you to understand them. Okay? So the other person is organizing their mental images, and then when they organize their mental images, they communicate to you so that you can then also understand them. This is what transference is. This is what the mental transference process is in the logical side is here are the details. Here are the facts. Here is the way into the future. I'm going to transfer that to you through this communication so that we can all understand where we are going. Then try to organize you through these facts. That's exactly what happens. There's this organization that happens. Organization energetically, organization physically. There is an organization of facts. So putting the formulas together, putting everything together so that everybody can be organized and moving correctly into the future. And when you look at human design, that's all it is. When we take the keynoting of your human design and we mix and we blend and we bring them together and we look at it through the business aspect and we look at it through relationships and it's all a formula. The formula of how you show up. So this preponderance of the small, it's the small details and facts that then allow us to be organized. So every gate, every line, every color, tone, and base. And just know that even though someone can produce good facts and articulate them, doesn't mean that they're right. Just because, science says that, there's going to be a pill for blah, 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 it doesn't mean that they're right. So we all know that. In the world of statistics, how facts can lie and cheat us, how theories can fall apart, and how very good opinions can be meaningless. And we also see this. We are in this era in 2020 where the models for the COVID disease virus were so totally off. It was used as a scare tactic. 1.2 or 2.2 million people within a 250,000 million population. Things like that are like if everything can be manipulated. You can put whatever you want into a computer model to get whatever result you want. Now let's just take a look as we walk through this. The gated detail, this preponderance of the small, has to have caution, patience, and detail produce excellence out of limitation. Right angle cross of the Maya, you describe the Maya so others can understand. The juxtaposition of detail is examining and expressing those details for the understanding. And then the left angle cross of obscuration, concealing the method of how you got to the understanding. So the very first line is routine. That is exactly what flow wants. It wants a routine. It wants a routine. It wants a routine. It wants to be able to, operate the same way correctly every single day. It wants a routine. So the ability to transcend the boredom of routine through a rich and daring fantasy life. The ability to organize organize the detail through fantasy. Now that is really what projections do. Projections of into the future, so projecting into the future, whether that be business, family, whatever, there has to be a fantasy there because we're not there yet. So having a fantasy as to what data you're going to put into the computer, come up with your generated model, and it's all fantasy, but it's creating a routine. So the rebellion and its enormous waste of energy, the need for expression which ignores the details. So details are super de-duper important in the 60-second gate. Details allow for the opinions. Details allow for the funding to drop in. Details allow us a way to communicate our mental prowess. The second gate is restraint, the innate restrictiveness and discipline to comply with and exalt restraint, the discipline necessary for detailed work. And detailed work, there is a discipline there. The one role that comes to my mind is accountants. Like there has to be this discipline to get in the detailed work. The intellect stymied by severe restraints tends to anxiety and restlessness. The expression of anxiety and restlessness when faced with detailed work. The discovery, a genius for the unusual. The ability to discover valuable information in detail work and to find innovative applications for the knowledge. The unusual gift of finding and expressing valuable details. A dissatisfaction with the monotony of detail work, where what is missed may be of great importance and value. The expression of dissatisfaction and boredom in detail work. So, this discovery process. What are we discovering? Trial and error. We are discovering innovative applications, valuable details. Because not everybody is, got lots of third lines in their design. They don't have that in their profile. And the trial and error process, they are learning the trial and error process from third line people. I'm a third line being. Discovery of trial and error happens through everything that I do. Everything that I do. The aestheticism, the perfected aesthetic withdrawal in the pursuit of harmony and simplicity, where outside dangers do not exist and there is time to pursue inner meaning in the detail. Detail that can only be expressed after periods of isolation and reflection. Now, again, how interesting that all of a sudden we are in this, double helix and this duality again, where isolation and reflection were such a deep part of the abstract circuitry, but it is also in here as well. So that we can express what we need to express. Isolation and reflection are good. And really what that does is it brings us to this simple way to then communicate, put details, put words, name it, so that it can become concretized into the Maya. So the urge to take actions against established values that when restrained by circumstances leads to withdrawal that waits for opportunity, where the detail is organized, isolation as a strategy waiting for the right opportunity for expression. That, using a strategy of isolation may be good, but it isn't about a mental process. Your physical body will tell you when you need to go into isolation, when you need to reflect. 5 is metamorphosis. When excellence is achieved, action is necessary. So in order for all of this testing, all of these, opinions and facts and judgments and corrections and talent and flow and concentration and focus and leadership, we actually need some action. Action is necessary. The 48th gate tells you that because the 48th gate, 5th line, is all about action. So reaching out to others to share, symbolized by the moon's phases, as it moves from darkness to eventually sharing fully its light. The understanding that only when the details are complete can action or expression be initiated. A tendency in metamorphosis to seek acclaim through dramatic presentation when the details are organized. The need for attention demands expression. So the metamorphosis is, here is the pattern. And when we present the resources and the money and we take the action collectively, we've gathered those resources to do that, then we can come to a metamorphosis. But the metamorphosis must have detail. We must go down to the preponderance of the small so that we can see it. When we look at scientists doing the genome project and breaking down all the DNA and all of those amino acids and proteins, and you continue to break it down. We needed to have, somebody had to take some action in order for this to happen. But the action that is necessary will be provided once the funding has shown up. And then the 6th is self-discipline. Penny saved is a penny earned. Detail is the path to material success. The understanding that material success depends on the expression of detail. The skills, but not the discipline to succeed. The gift for, but not the discipline to do the necessary detail work. Well, what it's saying here is that, we are all built on patterns. We are all built on the flow of the 515. So having material express depends on the expression of the detail. If there is something off in the detail, that's the material expression of it may or may not fail. There may be an error in the code. So having self-discipline means paying attention to the details. So if you have this energy, if you have anything in the logic wants mastery. Logic wants perfection. Are you ever going to get it? Nope. Because there's always this individual that walks in and creates a mutation, which then resets the whole thing and the pattern needs to be tested again. But watch how these energies that we just walked through, you can see the keynoting, that they have to be in the now to project into the future. They're starved of energy, so they're always trying to lobby for their agenda. I don't even want to use the word agenda. Lobby for a test kit, to test phase. Getting people's, they need to get people's buy-in. And they're going to get that buy-in from details. Details seem to ease people's minds. So play around with this. Write down all your keynotes. If you have any of these gates, any of these channels, write down all of the keynotes. See how they play out in your life. And then as we walk through the weekly coaching, we'll play around with this stuff so that you can watch how, self-discipline to the preponderance of the small may show up in your life. How routine may show up in your life. All of these things are really important to just watch them and let them do their thing instead of interfering. It's about non-interference. All right, so we will pop into the next video.